The night felt heavier than usual, the silence cut only by the hum of an old fridge. Olivia said, "Something's wrong, James. The bank just froze my account." James replied, "That's impossible, you didn't do anything." Olivia scrolled frantically, her breath shallow as she read. "These charges, new credit cards, loans, all under my name." The words felt like knives, each revelation stripping away another layer of her security. Fear twisted into disbelief when Olivia whispered, "Someone is living as me." James tried to calm her, but his hands shook, betraying his own terror. The room spun with betrayal and confusion, every familiar object now alien in the shadow of this discovery. Olivia clenched her fists, her voice breaking yet sharp. "They stole my life, James. But I will take it back. I swear I'll make them regret ever crossing me." Morning arrived, but brought no peace. Olivia sat with swollen eyes, her voice raw as she said, "I called the bank again. They don't believe me. They think I did this." James slammed his fist against the counter, shouting, "They can't just assume it was you." Olivia felt stripped of dignity, her identity questioned by strangers who only saw numbers. The betrayal deepened as she whispered, "It's like I don't exist anymore, James. They've erased me." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, shaking her head. The weight of humiliation pressed on her chest, turning her pain into fire. Olivia thought, if the world wouldn't defend her, she would fight her own war. Her vow hardened like steel, silent yet unshakable. She would reclaim her life by burning the thief's world down. The call from her boss was merciless. Olivia said, "You can't suspend me. I didn't do this." But the voice on the other end was cold, accusing. James watched helplessly as she collapsed into the chair, sobbing, "They think I'm lying, James. I've lost everything." The walls seemed to close in, every echo of her sobs a reminder of the theft's reach. James muttered, "This isn't just fraud, it's destruction." Olivia wiped her tears, her eyes now sharper, colder. She whispered to herself, "Whoever did this knew me, knew how to break me. But they don't know what I'm capable of." The despair shifted into a quiet fury, an ember waiting to ignite. Every humiliation became fuel. Every loss became ammunition. Revenge was no longer an option. It was survival. Later that evening, the mentor appeared at the doorstep. Thomas said, "Olivia, I've seen this before. Identity thieves don't just steal names, they steal lives." His weathered eyes carried the burden of experience. Olivia demanded, "How do I stop them?" Thomas replied, "You don't play by their rules. You make them regret underestimating you." James protested, "Revenge won't fix this," but Olivia's expression was unyielding. The fire inside her had grown too fierce to smother. She looked at Thomas, whispering, "Then teach me, show me how to fight back." The old man nodded solemnly, knowing what this path would cost her. The room grew colder. Silence weighed heavy, but Olivia's resolve was now a living thing, unshakable, irreversible. The night stretched long, rain pounding against the window, as Olivia sat alone. She replayed every moment of the betrayal, each false charge, every lost piece of dignity. Her whisper was fierce. "They wanted to erase me, but I will carve my name into their downfall." James approached, saying softly, "I'm scared for you, Olivia," but she didn't flinch. Her silence was louder than his fear. Her mind painted visions of the faceless thief, thriving on her stolen life. The fire in her chest spread through her veins, each heartbeat louder, stronger. Olivia stood staring into the storm outside, and declared to herself, "This ends with me reclaiming everything they stole, even if I must destroy them to do it." Olivia sat at the mentor's table, the air thick with cigarette smoke and old books. Thomas said, "The first rule is simple. Find their weakness before they exploit yours." Olivia replied, "They already did, Thomas. They stole everything I built." James sat in silence, his eyes darting uneasily between them. Thomas leaned forward, whispering, "Then you take something back, piece by piece, until they choke on the mess they created." Olivia felt fear mingled with power, her chest tightening as she said, "I'm not just fighting to clear my name anymore, I'm fighting to take theirs away. James muttered, "You sound like them," but she didn't falter. The weight of the world shifted that night, the first brick laid on the road toward revenge, with no chance of turning back. The first step was information. Olivia said, "I need to know who did this. I won't rest until I see their face." Thomas handed her a small folder, his voice calm. "Identity thieves leave trails, even when they think they're invisible." James asked, "And if this leads nowhere?" Thomas answered, "Then you make them show themselves." Olivia opened the folder, her breath catching as she saw forged signatures and false addresses linked to her name. She whispered, "They studied me. They knew how to mimic me." Rage burned deep, but behind it was fear, the fear of being hunted by a stranger who wore her skin. She closed the file with trembling hands, muttering, "I'll hunt them instead." Later, Olivia walked alone down the rain-slick streets, replaying the fraud's cruelty in her mind. Her inner voice was sharp. They knew my habits, my weaknesses, my patterns. She clenched her fists, muttering, "But I'll know theirs soon enough." A shadow loomed as she passed an alley, and for a moment she thought she saw someone watching. Fear pulsed through her veins before transforming into defiance. Olivia shouted into the emptiness, "I won't run anymore." The silence that followed felt mocking, yet liberating. The thief was faceless still, but in that moment, Olivia realized her transformation had already begun. She was no longer prey. She was the hunter waiting to strike. Back at home, James confronted her. He said, "Olivia, this isn't you. You're obsessed." "I don't even recognize the woman standing in front of me." Olivia snapped back. "That's the point, James. They wanted to erase me, but I'll erase the version they created." His shoulders sagged as he whispered, "And what if you lose yourself completely in the process?" Olivia looked at him with a fire he'd never seen before, answering coldly, "Then at least I'll lose on my terms, not theirs." The silence that followed was suffocating, filled with unspoken fear and broken trust. Olivia knew their bond was cracking under the weight of her rage, but she no longer had room in her heart for doubt. That night, Thomas called with new information. His gravelly voice carried urgency. "I've traced the fake accounts. They all link back to one location. A name keeps surfacing." Olivia whispered, "Give it to me." He said, "Daniel Cross." The syllables hung heavy in the air. Olivia repeated them slowly, her anger curling around each sound. "Daniel Cross." James whispered, "Who is he?" But Olivia only stared into the distance, her jaw tight, heart racing. Thomas added, "If you go after him, there's no turning back." Olivia's lips curled into a grim smile. Then this is where it begins. Her rage had found its target, and the path forward was lit, not by hope, but by fire. Olivia sat in the cafe across from Thomas, her eyes scanning the grainy documents he'd brought. She whispered, "Daniel Cross. So that's the man who thought he could live as me." Thomas stirred his coffee, his tone steady. "He isn't clever, just arrogant. That arrogance will undo him." Olivia's jaw tightened as she said, "I'll make sure of it." James arrived late, dropping into the seat beside her with a grim sigh. He muttered, "If you start this, Olivia, you won't come back the same." Olivia turned to him, her expression icy but resolute. "Good. Because the person I was is already dead." The words silenced the table, leaving only the hum of conversation around them. Olivia wasn't just hunting anymore. She was sharpening her blade. The next morning, Olivia sat at her laptop, searching every trace of Daniel Cross online. "New job history, multiple addresses, accounts in my name," she muttered. "Hi." Her blood boiled at the thought of him walking freely while she carried his wreckage. James said softly, "This isn't healthy." She snapped, "Neither is being erased, James." He flinched, his silence an admission of defeat. Olivia clicked through file after file until she saw Daniel's polished face staring back at her in a corporate photo. She whispered, "You've built a life with my identity. Now I'll dismantle it piece by piece." The quiet of the room was broken only by the sound of keys tapping like the rhythm of her vengeance. Olivia tracked Daniel to a networking gala held at a luxurious downtown hotel. She stood at the edge of the ballroom, her black dress a shield as she watched him laugh with colleagues. "That's him," she whispered under her breath. James beside her said, "He doesn't look like a thief." Olivia hissed, "That's why he gets away with it." Thomas had warned her, "Observe first, strike later." But as Daniel shook hands with business partners, Olivia's nails dug into her palms. She whispered, "He's living my life." For the first time, Daniel wasn't just a name on paper. He was flesh, blood, and a living reminder of everything stolen. Her fury grew heavier, ready to burst. Later that night, back at her apartment, Olivia paced furiously. James said, "I saw him, Olivia. He looked untouchable." Olivia stopped, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Nobody is untouchable. Everyone has a crack." She slammed a folder onto the table. Inside were Daniel's forged documents, each one another knife in her heart. She whispered, "He forged me into someone disposable." James shook his head. "You're starting to scare me." Olivia locked eyes with him, her voice calm but chilling. "Good. Maybe you should be scared, because I won't stop until he feels what I felt." In that moment, James realized Olivia wasn't just chasing justice, she was transforming into something far darker. Days later, Thomas met Olivia in a quiet park. He said, "Patience is a weapon, Olivia. Don't rush your strike." She clenched her jaw, replying, "Every day he walks free feels like another day he wins." Thomas handed her an envelope. Inside was a lead, Daniel's hidden financial accounts. Olivia whispered, "This is his foundation." Thomas nodded, "Tear it away, and he crumbles." Olivia's chest heaved with anticipation as she clutched the papers. James, who had followed reluctantly, muttered, "And when he crumbles, what about you?" Olivia didn't answer. Instead, she walked forward, the envelope gripped tightly, as if it were the first weapon in a war only she could fight. Olivia stared at the papers Thomas had given her, her mind racing. "Hidden accounts? He's been feeding off me like a parasite," she muttered. James leaned against the bench, uneasy. "If you expose this, he'll know you're coming." Olivia's lips curved in a cold smile. "That's the point. Let him feel hunted." The air around them felt heavy, every word charged with intent. Thomas said quietly, "Every step closer takes something from you. Don't forget that." Olivia clenched her fists, answering, "He already took everything. I've got nothing left to lose." For the first time, James saw a fire in her that looked unstoppable, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Inside her dim apartment, Olivia pinned photographs and documents to the wall, building a web of Daniel's lies. Red string connected addresses, accounts, and faces. She whispered, "I see you now, Daniel Cross. Every move, every lie." James stood in the corner, his voice trembling. "This doesn't feel like justice anymore, Olivia. It feels like obsession." She shot him a glare. "Obsession is what keeps me alive. Justice died when he took my life away." The room glowed with a sickly yellow light, shadows stretching like claws. James muttered, "I don't recognize you anymore." Olivia answered flatly, "Good. The woman you knew is gone. The one standing here's the one who'll bury him." Olivia followed Daniel late one evening, her steps silent, as he exited a luxury office building. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "There you are, thief." She kept her distance, her body coiled like a predator. Daniel laughed on the phone, his words too faint to hear, but his arrogance was loud enough to cut through the night. James, trailing reluctantly, hissed, "You're stalking him now. Do you hear yourself?" Olivia smirked without looking back. "I hear him breathing with my name on his lips." James groaned, "You're losing yourself." Olivia whispered coldly, "No, James, I'm finally finding myself." In the glow of city lights, the hunt had truly begun. Back at Thomas's workshop, the older man laid out old case files with a solemn expression. "You think revenge frees you, but it chains you tighter," he warned. Olivia leaned in, her eyes sharp. "Chains don't scare me anymore. Living powerless does." Thomas sighed, rubbing his temple. "I've seen this fire before. It consumed me once." Olivia shot back, "Then let it consume me. Maybe it's the only way to cleanse what he's done." James shouted suddenly, slamming his fist down. "Stop talking like this is salvation. You're turning into him." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Olivia's steady whisper. "If becoming him is what it takes to end him, then so be it." The storm outside mirrored Olivia's rage as she stood at her window, watching rain lash against the glass. She whispered, "Every storm ends, but this one ends with him broken." James stood behind her, his voice soft, almost pleading. "You can still walk away, Olivia, before you lose everything." She turned slowly, her face illuminated by lightning. "I already lost everything when he stole my name." Thunder boomed, punctuating her words. James closed his eyes, realizing she had crossed a line no one could pull her back from. Olivia stared out once more, her voice a vow etched into the night. "Daniel Cross will pay. Not tomorrow, not someday. Soon." Olivia sat at the cafe corner, her hood drawn low, eyes fixed on Daniel laughing with colleagues at the far table. She whispered under her breath, "He sits in my life like it was his to begin with." James shifted uneasily across from her, muttering, "You're acting like a ghost haunting him." Olivia's lips curled. "Good. Ghosts don't get ignored. They terrorize." Daniel leaned back, smug and careless, ordering another round. Olivia's voice trembled with rage. "Every smile of his is a theft of mine." James pleaded softly, "Then stop watching him. He's winning by just existing in your head." Olivia leaned forward, her words sharp as knives. "No. He's about to exist in my hands, and I don't plan to let go." Later that night, Olivia confronted Thomas with her findings. She slapped down photos of Daniel's offshore accounts and whispered, "He's hiding millions while I scraped pennies." Thomas examined the evidence, frowning deeply. "This is dangerous territory. You're not chasing a thief anymore, you're hunting a king in his castle." Olivia smirked coldly, "Then I'll burn his castle down." Thomas's eyes darkened. "I warned you. Revenge doesn't heal. It hollows." Olivia snapped, "He hollowed me out long ago, now I'm just returning the favor." The silence stretched, broken only by the ticking clock, until Thomas said softly, "If you continue, you'll lose more than him. You'll lose yourself." On a rain-slicked street, Olivia shadowed Daniel again, her heart steady now instead of frantic. "He doesn't see me," she thought, "because he never did." Daniel ducked into an upscale club, guards nodding as if he were royalty. James caught up, breathless. "You're drowning yourself in this. Every night, every step, you're becoming what you despise." Olivia didn't look back, whispering, "I don't despise myself. I despise him, and I'll carve the difference into his skin if I must." James' face twisted in fear, realizing she wasn't speaking metaphor anymore. The night swallowed them both, neon reflections glimmering in the puddles like fractured truth. Inside the club's shadows, Olivia lingered at the bar, watching Daniel toast with his entourage. Her fists clenched around a glass, the condensation dripping like sweat. James whispered urgently, "This isn't a war you can win here. He's surrounded, he's protected." Olivia smirked, her eyes locked on Daniel's every movement. Even kings bleed when they forget to look down. Daniel's laughter echoed too loud, too sure. The bass of the music rattled the floor, but Olivia's focus never wavered. She whispered, "Tonight isn't his end. It's his warning." James muttered, "Warnings don't scare men like him." Olivia leaned closer, voice sharp, "Then I'll stop warning." Back at her apartment, Olivia pinned Daniel's photo at the center of her wall map, her hand trembling but steadying as she drove a nail through it. "This is where the game ends," she whispered. James stood at the doorway, his voice almost broken. "You're turning this into war." Olivia turned, her gaze fierce and unyielding. "It's not war, James. It's justice, the kind no court will ever give me." Thunder rolled faintly outside, echoing her words. Thomas's warning still haunted her ears, but her rage drowned it out. She stared at Daniel's picture one last time before whispering, "And I won't rest until his world lies in ashes." The lobby buzzed with polished voices until Olivia stepped into the marble hush and said, "Daniel Cross, I'm done speaking through lawyers." He turned, a perfect smile sliding into place, arrogance lacquered over fear. Security, he called, but she kept walking. You built this on my name, Olivia said, and I brought the proof. She raised a folder, pages trembling like struck strings. James whispered, You don't have to do it here, but Olivia's gaze never wavered. Daniel scoffed, Delusions will get you arrested. She laid the first document on the front desk, then another, each one a nail. Identity theft, shell accounts, forged signatures, she said, voice steady. The crowd quieted, eyes shifting to Daniel's rigid jaw. Olivia added, You stole my life in silence. I'll take it back in public. His laugh cracked, thin as glass, and the room felt hungry for truth. Security moved in, but James stepped forward first, voice shaking and loud. These documents are verified. Stop pretending she's the threat. Daniel sneered. Who are you to certify anything? James lifted a drive. Employee records you forgot to scrub. Olivia felt the rush of fear snap into resolve as she said, Check the timestamps, the IP trails, the transfers tied to my name. The head of security hesitated, eyes narrowing at the signatures. Run it, he ordered, and the lobby's chatter bent toward the unfolding audit. Daniel hissed, You think this proves anything? Olivia answered softly, It proves you needed me to exist. James squeezed her shoulder once, a quiet anchor. The monitors blinked awake, streams of data spilling like confession, and murmurs sharpened into the first cuts of disbelief. A broad-shouldered man stepped from the elevator, expression carved from granite. Olivia recognized the enforcer from shadow and rumor, the kind of problem money hires when truth refuses to stay buried. He said, Walk away, Miss Miller. She replied, I walked away when he stole my life. I'm done walking. He studied her for a long beat, then looked at James, at the screens, at Daniel grinding his teeth behind polish. This isn't clean, he muttered, uncertainty finally leaking through steel. Daniel snapped, Handle it. The man's jaw worked. Handle what exactly? Her, or the evidence? Olivia held his stare and said, Pick a side that won't rot your hands. Something in his shoulders loosened. He didn't move closer. He didn't move at all. They ushered into a glass-walled conference room, city glittering like witnesses beyond. Daniel said, You want a confession? Earn it. Olivia laid down the final record, a transfer chain that ended in his private foundation. You bought a reputation with my name, she said, and hid the bill in my ruin. He leaned close, voice low. You'll never get your old life back. Olivia answered, I don't want the old one. I want the truth and your silence breaking. Thomas's advice rang steady in her bones. Aim for the hinge. She slid a notarized affidavit from a bank officer who'd flagged the anomaly. Daniel reached for it. Olivia's hand was faster. Not this time, she said. Outside the glass, faces gathered, drawn by the gravity of collapse. Silence hung. Then the head of security spoke quietly. We've corroborated enough to suspend access and notify authorities. Daniel's composure cracked. This is defamation, he barked. But the word fell flat against the printed ledger of his theft. Olivia said, You erased me. Today I write my name back. He jabbed a finger at her. You'll regret this. She exhaled, calm as winter. I already spent regret. All that's left is consequence. James added, voice steady now, and witnesses. Outside, phones lifted. Inside, the doors unlocked like a verdict. Olivia gathered her papers, not as trophies but as keys. You don't get to wear me anymore, she said, turning from him at last. The city beyond the glass looked almost clean. Morning light cut through Olivia's blinds, sharp as a verdict. James said softly, It's over, Olivia. He's in custody. She stared at the news sticker on her phone. Daniel Cross indicted on multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. For a heartbeat, the words felt unreal, like watching someone else's name reclaim hers. She whispered, I didn't think it would feel this quiet. James smiled faintly. Quiet isn't weakness, it's space. Her chest ached with the weight of years spent fighting to be believed. He wore my skin, she said, but he'll never carry my name again." The silence held, tender instead of empty, and she allowed it to stay. Later that day, Olivia met Thomas at a quiet park bench, autumn leaves drifting like discarded disguises. He looked older in daylight, weathered but proud. Thomas said, "You carried the fight further than I ever could." Olivia answered, "You gave me a map when I was lost. You made me believe I could win." He chuckled, "Maps don't win battles. Will does." She studied his lined face, realizing he too had been a survivor of stolen trust. "I didn't just want revenge," she admitted. "I wanted to feel real again." Thomas placed a hand on hers, steady as stone. "And now you do." James returned with coffee, his grin more genuine than she'd seen in years. They froze his accounts, seized his properties. "The whole empire crumbled overnight," he said. Olivia laughed, a raw sound, half joy, half disbelief. He thought he could steal a life forever, but all he did was leave fingerprints. James added, "You showed them the truth, Olivia. That's power." She leaned back, eyes tracing the treetops. "Not power. Freedom." James nudged her shoulder. "Don't pretend it doesn't feel good." She smiled faintly. "Maybe it feels like breathing again." At night, Olivia opened her old journal, pages filled with shaky handwriting from darker years. She traced the words, "They won't erase me." Closing the book, she whispered, "They didn't." A mirror caught her reflection. She looked older, sharper, stronger. The scars of betrayal hadn't vanished, but they no longer owned her. She thought of Daniel sitting in a cell, stripped of charm, stripped of stolen names. For once she felt no rage, only a clean absence. "Justice isn't revenge," she murmured, "but sometimes it tastes the same." The next morning, Olivia walked into the bustling street, the city humming without menace for the first time in years. She thought of the girl who had once begged to be seen, silenced by forged signatures and stolen credit. That girl was gone, but in her place stood someone whole. People brushed past, unaware of her battles, but she no longer needed them to know. She carried her own proof. Olivia whispered, "I am my name. No one wears it but me." And with that, she kept walking, each step light, final, and unchained.